Don't mind me, I'm different. The podcast where we smack down the shadow surrounding ADHD and depression in the workplace. I'm Ron, your ADHD guy, and I'm here to be your guide, your voice, and your reminder that you're not alone. I got your back. Each episode will unpack the real struggles, share powerful tools, and build strategies to help you stop seeing it as a problem, but a true force to be reckoned with. Together, we're making it cool to be different.
I may cry because he literally saved my life.
Yeah,
And
it's okay.
darn it, Ron. And he said to me, he said, I know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I had this big secret I've been hiding from the world, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I know what you're doing, and if you do it again, I'm gonna tell your father.
Welcome to today's episode. It's not just a conversation, it's a lifeline. I'm Ron, your ADHD guy, and I'm joined by Koya Bakare, an educator, state and national pageant queen who's graced the pages of Vogue and Essence. And we're diving into a powerful, emotional, and deeply human journey through ADHD, anxiety, depression, trauma, and most importantly, healing. From surviving bulimia and sexual assault to rediscovering joy and connection, Koya shares her truth with grace and fire. If you ever felt like your story was too messy to matter, this is the episode you can't miss. But be forewarned, it does get pretty messy. Okay, I'm Ron Sowers, your ADHD guy, and I'm here with Koya Bakare, right?
Excellent. Yes, Koya Bakare. Yes. Nice to meet
So tell me, what's your like experience with ADHD
So
or
my
mental
experience.
health in general?
So mental health, I've had a long personal journey with it, specific to ADHD in the population in
Mm,
which I work. I've definitely had some beautiful human beings who I've worked with who have informed me that they're dealing with ADHD, and so been able to have some accommodations made or things of that nature. I have not been diagnosed with ADHD, but I have been diagnosed with anxiety and
yeah.
depression. And so it it all comes, I believe, falls into that pool of mental health. For me, it's been a lifelong journey. And if I cry, it's not out of woefulness. It's just I
Mm,
celebrate. I've come a long way. I come a long way where
yeah.
I celebrate. I woke up this morning, I heard the birds, and I was like, oh
Aw.
gosh, oh gosh. I was excited to hear the birds versus, oh gosh, I'm still here again, you know?
No, I know. I love hearing the birds myself,
Yeah,
and
it's just like, oh, I love it. So I dealt with again anxiety, depression. I'm a survivor of 2 suicide attempts.
yeah.
um, and bulimia, which rooted out of sexual assaults that occurred to me when I was younger. So, with a lot of therapy, I'm in active therapy now. I love my
Mm,
therapist. I see her one to two times a week. One can say, "Oh, you're great." My therapist is part of my lifeline. Just like I need to drink water, just like I need to breathe,
yeah.
and I need her just to keep checking in, just to make sure, because as I was saying earlier, we all are wired differently, and I identified when I was younger, oh, I'm wired differently. It's some things just seemed a little different. I just thought it was odd, right?
Yeah.
But that associated with a trauma just elevated things. So that's pretty much my experience with mental health
Yeah.
as it's impacted me. But it's been It was a rocky road. It was a rocky
No,
road.
and you've seemed to
Yeah.
persevere. You've graced the cover of Vogue magazine, Essence.com in style. Like, how did
Mhm.
you like go from that trauma to the person that you are today?
Thank you for asking. So I haven't graced Vogue yet, but it's coming.
Oh, okay.
But but definitely those opportunities, Vogue, Essence, I've many runways, many shoots. It came with faith, resilience, therapy, but it started with identifying that I needed help.
Hmm.
I had normalized my very unhealthy thinking as just something that was a part of my life. I
Yeah.
suffered with bulimia and I was always very thin and lean so I could hide it.
Yeah.
I'm 5'8", so I have a little bit of height. This is the biggest I've been right now, so I'm about 165. So
Yeah.
um and I don't even like to put sizes, but I'm kind of lean. But I was even leaner when I was younger, so I could hide it.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I remember so many different onsets, but what was the turning point for me when I actively said to myself and actually initiated seeking help was when I was going through a bulimic episode and um literally
Yeah.
was down on my knees, forcing myself to vomit,
Wow.
not to be super grotesque, wiping the vomit out, clean out my mouth. And I would do this several times a day. It was a routine. And I remember coming out the bathroom, and a gentleman I knew, he used to model for Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
And I may cry because he literally saved my life.
Yeah.
And
It's okay.
darn it, Ron. And he said to me, he said, I know what you're doing. Right? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking I had this big secret I've been hiding from the world, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I know what you're doing, and if you do it again, I'm gonna tell your father. So here's the thing. He didn't know my daddy. He had no idea who my daddy was. At least to me, he
Hmm.
didn't know. He knew he would hear me talk about my reverence for my dad. But he knew I had enough reverence that to hear that, it would scare me.
Yeah.
And I remember begging him, please don't tell my dad. I'm gonna get it together. He was like, "You're killing yourself. What are
Yeah.
you doing?" And things like that. And so I remember going home, and let me preface this in saying that this wasn't the first time he said something, but it was the first time he said something very blatantly and clear. He never I never knew he knew. He would say things like, "Are you okay? Do we need to
Hmm.
speak about anything?" But for him to be physically standing at the bathroom, and he actually walked slightly in. So I went home that day
Yeah.
and just totally devastated. And again, because I'm dealing with my own mental anguish, what I knew was to harm myself, though I didn't process it as harming.
Hmm.
I knew to go into this bulimic episode. And I went into the kitchen and I said, okay, I'm doing one my last time. Because if one understands how the mind can work so it's such a juxtaposition of what we're thinking. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm in control, when
Yeah.
really I was never in
Oh,
control.
yeah.
And so I was like, oh, just one more time, I'll be okay. No. But
I
the
know. It's
TV
always
was,
that one lower time.
yeah, the TV was on, Ron, and this gentleman, his name is Les Brown, and he's
Okay.
a motivational speaker. I needed to hear that at the moment. He was speaking on resilience and life-saving tactics, right? I'm pushing away, but what I heard him say was a quote that literally changed my life. And it says, if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside would do me no harm. He said it twice.
Yeah.
Did not tell me that he
Powerful.
wasn't speaking to me. It was yes, and I thought, oh my God, I've become my worst enemy.
Yeah.
And it was then that I made a decision to shift. I can't say that I stopped immediately. I did not, but I went into back into active therapy.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious decision to be better. And so that was many years ago, and I've been back in therapy since then. I had stopped at one point because I thought I was good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And then I returned back when I came back into pageantry. But I hope I answered your question. I went down a rabbit hole, but
Yeah,
um,
you're fine.
yeah, my journey to those opportunities was woven through my journey to live. It
Yeah.
was one could say, "Oh, I saw you in Essence, or I saw you on Vogue or in Style. I saw you at Baltimore Fashion Week. I saw you at this," and that's wonderful. But it was also a way for me to mask because
Yeah.
what you're, I mean, and not that I wasn't, and I'm grateful because a part of me was still living, but I still, once I came home to the silence, I still felt the anguish and the turmoil of my trauma.
Yeah.
And no type of opportunity, magazine shoot, runway shoot could take away the pain
Yeah.
that I was enduring. So I needed to treat myself at all those ages. And so, and that's how I've been able to find the strength because I had to reconnect back with the soul of myself. I had lost it. I had no idea who I was and
Yeah.
just lost in misery. So we're at a good space now. I give
That's
thanks.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It feels good to it feels good, Ron. And not to be, I don't mind being transparent, but I don't want to be over like TMI. But I was taking a bath last night
Hmm.
and I was so excited because I remember a time when I was afraid to take a bath because water
Wow.
scared me. Because, and I love water. I love to swim. I wanted to be a marine biologist growing up, but
That's so cool.
I became afraid of water because I used to think of water as a way to expire myself. I was like, I can drown myself. I can do those different things. So for a
Mm.
long time, I only took showers. I didn't even go swimming anymore because I knew that my mind still needed to elevate to a place of full healing. And so when I sat in the tub last night, I had tears.
That's
It
so
was it
beautiful.
was a big deal. Like it was a big deal. And not that I haven't taken baths before, but um I was there for like an hour and to someone else that may seem small, but it was like, oh my God, I remember a time I couldn't
Wow.
even
Yeah.
do it because I knew my thing was I want somebody to find me here, no longer here.
Wow.
And I was excited to sit with candles, Ron. And yeah, so
Yeah, that's a huge transformation, and like
yeah.
you kind of answered some of the questions that I was going to ask on like um how did that really like how did those things really transform you? And can you tell me about an experience that was like really anxious, like you had a lot of anxiety um doing a runway and what you did to help with that,
Um,
or
yeah, I can actually. So, do you want it specifically to pageantry? Because I have several.
well, whatever one stands out the most.
Yeah. So, with anxiety specifically, um, it wasn't too long ago, maybe about a year ago, and I wasn't scheduled to do a shoot or show or speak
Hmm.
that day. I had one the next day. However, um, I just remember laying in the bed crying. It just seems like yes, it was, and I hadn't
Hmm.
had an anxiety trigger like that in a long time. And I remember calling one of my friends and saying, I need you to get here. because I'm afraid. I said my thoughts are running every which way. And it wasn't that I didn't want to be here, it was a fear. I became so nervous. Like with my anxiety, I get nervous, I get jittery, and I'm jumping, and I'm just
Yeah.
I'm not in control. Um, and so they were able to come to the house. And so what happens is for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be I'm doing something. It could just fall upon me. But what I have to do in order to negate that happening, I take a natural supplement. It works very well for me. I know others
Yeah.
have a different battery, but I take a battery of different supplements that work wonders for me. But I have to do a meditation. I have to do yoga. I have to
Yeah.
meet with my therapist. There's a litany, there's a cocktail of things
That's
that
cool.
for whatever reason works for me. I wasn't opposed to taking a med, but I said, let me try this first. But I
Yeah.
really believe, no, let me change my words. I know because I went into therapy, it helped me to be able to heal in certain spaces so that these other things can work for me. If I had not went into therapy, I know I would still be bombarded mentally and emotionally and in my heart space with all I can see and smell it all, right? Of
Yeah.
everything that happened to me as a child. I see it, but it's no longer, I'm no longer a hostage to it.
Yeah.
So in that instance, I was just literally back to, an instance of anxiety, anxiousness. Woke up and I just felt that way. And I just remember crying. I've been at work um and have to shut my door. And then I'll call maybe a coworker and say, hey, I need you to come sit with me. Can you just sit with me?
Wow.
Um, and
That's
then
awesome.
um just working through that. So I have my own little tribe.
Yeah,
Um,
it's good.
yeah, it helps. I don't feel that I have to hide anymore. Um, I'll call this whenever I do a podcast or speak with someone, I call it looking behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people may see a sash or what I've done, or they may say, "Oh, Ron's doing his podcast or all your other wonderful accolades," but they don't see the human that
Yeah.
we're human. We're walking this very unique journey, and in this journey of glee and success, we also can feel some things that don't align with our heart space sometimes, and feels woeful, and we may not always, I know with me, I never always wanted someone to see that. Um, but it feels good to be able to tap into others and say, hey, I need you. Can you help me in this
Yeah.
moment?
No,
Yeah.
that's a huge place of vulnerability, and
Yeah.
I'm flattered and honored that you would share that with me, that you feel comfortable with that. That definitely helps. And you talked about it, like that you had these photo shoots and you had these all these things that on the outside look like, hey, that should make me happy, and a
Yeah.
lot of people see that.
Mhm.
And I know for me personally, like, if I get this, then I'm gonna be happy. Then,
Yeah.
like, this depression's gonna go away. Like, I'm on this podcast, nothing affects me, but it's so far from the truth.
Yeah.
And it's like those core wounds of
Yeah.
who we are, or who we think we are, that continues to define our existence.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind,
Hmm.
like, because it's like stuffing down those emotions,
Yeah.
and they're not going anywhere. They're just going to get worse, and they're going to come out when you least want them to, in a
Yeah.
way that you are going to regret.
Yeah.
I know if I've done that. So yeah, if you don't mind,
Hmm.
and if you're comfortable, Like, do
Mhm.
you think that like that bulimia came from like what you said, like being sexual assaulted
Oh gosh.
when you were a younger age? Like, how old were you when this happened?
Did I remember 4, 10, 11, and 12?
Wow.
Um, um, and as I go through therapy, um, it's healing in one space, scary in another.
Yeah.
More because what I can do very well. I can walk a runway, Ron, and I can compartmentalize, and I can
Definitely.
compartmentalize very well.
Yeah.
And though I say the runway part in jest, with therapy, I'm able to uncover some things. And it's very jarring because it's like, oh, there's two. The mind is so powerful.
Yeah.
And so what it did is protect me from remembering some things. But therapy,
Hmm.
though it does feel hurtful in some ways, it's still liberating because it's like I'm able to release it.
Yeah.
But you had asked where they root from. Without question, bulimia rooted out of the assault.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't feel with bulimia, I felt I was in control, but I didn't feel I was in control because I knew if that even makes sense.
No,
But
I get it.
with the assault, especially I was so young, I didn't have the words to fully articulate what was happening. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was painful. I knew it was hurtful. I was ashamed.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know how to fully articulate that, what was happening. And I went to an event, had to speak at over the weekend, and it was for survivors of childhood sexual
Yeah.
assault.
That's
And
awesome.
it was the first time I've consciously placed myself in a population where there were others like me, were so many, right?
Yeah.
But I did that because I knew it would be healing. And to hear the different stories, it was the first time I heard, though I knew, but with so many at one time, because it's actually sad. It wasn't gender specific, it's just all across the board, male,
Okay.
female, non-binary, everything, right?
Yeah.
And the little girl in me, and I may cry,
That's
though
totally
my older
fine.
self knows it, thank you. But the little girl was like, oh, darn it, Ron. Oh, I'm not alone, right? And not that it's something I want to celebrate. I
Hmm.
was like, oh, others who understood that just because we didn't have the words,
Yeah.
because that was something that I tussled with. It was like, oh, at such a young age, like how do I express, how do I express this? And
Yeah.
so I used to think something was wrong. I was like, how come I couldn't
No.
get it out? How come I couldn't say it? Now, when I got older, I could understand. But it was like, oh, I wasn't broken. Something wasn't so mentally
No.
wrong with me that I couldn't articulate because I heard all these others saying, yeah, when this happened to me at 2, 4, 11, 12, and 16, it was just horrible. But in the same time, the younger self was like, oh, I'm not the only one who
Yeah.
couldn't vocalize what this was at such a tender age. But without question, bulimia rooted from that. And I became so heavy laden and burdened down with the woefulness that I no longer desire to be here. I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
No, I can imagine the weight of
Yeah,
that.
I'm so glad I got it wrong. But in those moments, I just I didn't feel any hope. I didn't have a love for self, a love for anyone. And
Yeah.
my
Wow.
thought process was, how can someone love me? I've been violated. I'm broken. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. 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 I'm embarra
Hmm.
And I couldn't even get it right the first time. So let's try to get it right the second. It just, my mind was filled with so much darkness. But I remember
Yeah.
when I awakened from the second attempt, feeling
Wow.
so tired and identifying there has to be another way. I didn't, I no longer attempted, but I allowed the bulimia to still continue. And it wasn't until later on when I heard actual, the African proverb, if no, there's no enemy within, the enemy outside would do me no harm, that I start to take a shift. But yeah, it all rooted from that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we've now been able to uproot it, that it no
That,
longer
yeah.
just resides within our spirit.
No,
So
and that's huge. And that, you've shown a lot of bravery,
thank you.
perseverance, and you're a beautiful person within and without.
Thank you.
Um, and sexual, assault like happens to so many people, and they're so like, and thank you for talking about that, because the more, like, it's like depression, it just needs to be talked about
Yeah.
more, so people can feel like they're not the only one. Because I know my I don't have any personal experience with it, but my mother does,
Yeah.
and I didn't find that out until later. And I
Hmm.
didn't even see it as being like as big as it was, because she ended up having a mental breakdown when, I was like in high school. And
Yeah.
it was something that I didn't know what to deal with, because like mental health to me is still not considered, as serious as it needs to be. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's more important than actual physical health, because you can't work on those other things
Yeah.
until you get right. Because if I'm depressed, there's no way I want to go and exercise.
That's
Like,
true.
even though I know that it's going to work for me,
Hmm.
like, it's like, no, I'm just not
Yeah.
feeling it today. I may not even get out of bed.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I agree with you. The mind is so powerful. Ah, God, Ron, I can just,
Yeah, and it's the stories
yeah.
that we tell, the
Yeah.
narratives that we tell ourselves. And like, for
Mhm.
me, like, growing up, and to preface, I love my dad, and like, I love that he's been there for me. But there was a part he wasn't there for me emotionally,
Okay.
and I felt like, very, very neglected. There was a lot of times, like, and I couldn't put it into words, and I really didn't see it as being like a form of abuse,
Uh-huh.
but like, my core wound is that I feel like I'm not worthy of love. Like,
Mhm.
because my dad was never proud of me. Like, at least very few times in my life, I was always like it just felt like I was a burden, or like I just didn't matter. And, you know, I had to do a lot of work,
Mhm.
on myself, and, actually talk about, like, and ask my mom about how my dad grew up,
Mhm.
and how they were both raised, and trying to remember how I was raised from them, and understanding my dad went through a lot of physical trauma
Mhm.
growing up. So he did a really good job in not doing all that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that, like, I always like felt like this sense of like I was unlovable.
Mhm.
Like I didn't deserve it. And it's still there. But it's
Mhm.
like gotten so much better, because that's why that self-care that you're talking about, that you're doing, is like the lighting the candles and taking a
Mhm.
bath, is like,
Yeah.
it may seem so small, but
Mhm.
it's like these kindnesses that we do to ourselves, do
Yeah.
for ourselves and other people, that are so significant. That's why I'm like, I'm trying to create this kindness initiative, especially for people that deal with depression,
Yeah.
and anxiety,
Yeah.
like that deal with a mental health difference, to understand like, we got you.
Yeah.
Here's the toolkit that you can do, and
Yeah.
here's why this is so important,
Hmm.
because it's like they always say, be kind. And it's like, but it's like, how do I do that when I've never done that my whole entire life? Be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a work. And you said it earlier. Dealing with onsets of depression or ADHD or anxiety or any other term that may fall under mental illness, it doesn't have a look. And sometimes people may see,
Hmm.
like I said, you or me, like, oh, and not understand that we too are in need of support, may grace and understanding. I know from my experience, it's I may show up one way and I may be on, meaning
Yeah,
I may be able to execute and do things, but then the next day I may be totally different and I received, oh, is something wrong? And it is. I'm not feeling happy. I'm feeling really sad.
yeah, yeah.
But
But that's okay.
and it is okay, but it's not that I remember I used to get, oh, you're mean.
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't I was mean. I was dealing with trauma
Yeah,
and depression and not knowing how to navigate that space. So yes, it's essential. I truly believe in the work of kindness and self-care because that can creates to me empathy and compassion
yeah.
for others to be able to render and not make quick judgments because you never know. You never know. One time, I had a
Hmm.
young lady come up to me. She said, Koya, I want to be just like you. You have it all together. And I stopped her. And I said, I thank you for your words. They're definitely kind and gentle. I said,
Yeah,
but no. I said, because you don't know my I was like, you don't know my walk.
yeah, yeah. You don't know
And
me.
yeah, and I'm like, I don't wish this on anyone.
Yeah,
And so and I didn't go into um a lot of my background. I said, but I did say to her, it took me a while to get here. What you see is a lot of work.
yeah,
And I said,
yeah.
I still have tried, but I said, but I
A
thank
lot of
you.
help.
Yeah, a lot. Oh my goodness. Oh my
We
goodness.
can't walk this walk alone.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
too scary. It's too
it
much.
is. I had a therapist tell me, I remember this vividly. I went to go visit her and I was gonna have some energy work done. And she said, and I saw myself that she said, you came out the car. She said, you stood erect. You
Mm.
turned this way. She said, I saw the model walking. She said, and then when you walked across the door, and I did, as soon as I walked across that threshold of her door, I broke down crying.
Wow.
And it was then I realized the ability to mask very well. And
Yeah,
she said, you don't even know.
I
She said,
know.
you don't even know that you're doing it. And so now I try not to. I try to be very vulnerable first with myself.
Yeah,
I allow my
it's
emotions
huge.
to serve me. Yeah.
It's
So
huge,
sometimes
man.
I'll say to people, like I say to you, I may cry. And I'll say, hey, because I feel sad. Though I'll say, hey, it's because I'm feeling happy. But I allow my emotions to serve me, even though I may wipe my tears, but I suppress them for so long that I no longer want to do that. And so I may be wrong right there.
Man, that's great.
But I celebrate that I can release because I don't want to compartmentalize anymore. And
No,
not that
and
compartmentalizing is always bad, but in my case, it was.
yeah, and those masks only hurt us.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I grew up, and because of the lack of love, like that trickled out into who I ended up eventually becoming, and I would put on this mask. Like I wanted to be this gangster,
Mm,
and like for some reason, like I don't know. Like I definitely am attracted to hip hop music,
Hmm.
and I've made some songs when I was younger, and it was like I wanted to be like I wanted that lifestyle. I wanted
Yeah.
that because it felt like that would make me strong. That I would never get hurt, if I don't show vulnerability, if I show like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
smile like
Hmm.
and it was like once I've uncovered and saw that mask, like I was like, man, this is it's so exhausting
Yeah.
trying to
Yes.
pretend because I'm
Yes.
pretending to be something I'm really not. And that's, and I'm really just a quirky, goofy
That's
guy,
me.
and like, I make stupid jokes and like, I like to dance. Like I like all these other things, and that's what makes me happy. But I
Yeah.
can't show that because like it's what somebody's gonna think. I can't afford to care about what those other people think,
Yeah.
when it's not in line with who I am. You
I
know,
agree.
it's like I'm not saying like, fuck that person or whatever, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying like you're just not it's not something that's helping me to value your opinion.
I agree with you. One thing I like to, I coined this term some years ago. First, what is it, Lord? And I coined it. I can't see, and I'm quirky too. I like to say I'm a nerd in heels. I learned I'm a
That's
nerd in heels
awesome.
and makeup. I love it. I'm just a quirky nerd. But um, self care is first care
Yeah.
because you have to be able to attend and care for yourself. But what I find is that a lot of human beings, and I still do this too, we do this. We give so much
Yeah.
onto others, but we forget to do this. Give that same level of care and compassion to ourselves. And I had to say, why is that? But I said, oh, which is what's hard for me to receive and hear. I was like, oh, because you don't think you're worthy of it.
Yeah.
And I'm able to give it because I know what I want to receive. But it was so foreign. It felt so odd to receive care, especially from myself. So, yeah, let me ask you a question though. When did
Okay.
you realize that you were masking?
It took a long process,
Yeah.
and I definitely needed like a lot of help in that. Um, but I would say like it was like a couple years ago, and I was just like there was so much anger,
Mm,
and I didn't know it was like this core of, and it's still there to a degree.
yeah.
But I was like in a lot of denial of like, oh, I'm fine, like, you know, um. But it was like there was be times where I would get so angry, and it was like I was starting to branch out and do things, with other people and try to be more social,
Yeah.
which has been like a struggle for me,
Okay.
so like when I started, and I went and joined this group, that was doing bowling, and to me that was like such a corny thing to do, like. But I actually had a lot of fun doing it,
Yeah, yeah.
so I was like, this other part of me that's protecting me, so
Mhm.
I was like, if I had fun doing it, that's not actually me, so it's
Mm,
like I started to really explore, and I'm continuing to explore. It's like when I make a mistake and I do something like that, like I feel like I'm better than, or
mhm,
I've gotten better with, it's instead of being like, oh, you screwed up. Like, how could you have done that again? Be like, okay, let's more explore like why did you do that?
mhm,
Like, okay, you did it. That's you want to stop doing that, but like why did you like for an example, like I don't smoke, but like if I picked up a cigarette again and smoked,
mhm,
instead of being like that how you ruined all this work, it's like why did you pick up that cigarette? Like
mhm,
where's that coming from? Like asking
mhm,
the little boy in me, like where can like this is a great opportunity to learn about
Yeah.
like and usually it's like if I take some it's because like I'm afraid that I'm going to get rejected
Mm.
for even asking because I'm not worthy enough to get the right answer. You
Yeah.
know, so like and I've already made that assumption about myself without
Hmm.
even actually asking.
Yeah.
So it's like next time I can show that bravery and actually ask, you
Yeah.
know, for that thing. And that's still something that like, especially in our field or this like where you're trying to create your own path, it's like you've
Yeah.
got to be willing to ask and feel like you deserve to get a yes. And even if you get a no, it's going to come down the line.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so you talked about like, you know, you're, you know, sitting with a coworker and telling them like, "Hey, this is what's going on." So how did you develop that type of open spirited relationship, you know, so that other people like at their job can do the same thing?
Um,
And thank you
I
for that other question, Koya.
Oh, absolutely. Because it made when I asked it, I was asking myself too, because I was thinking when, but I thought about different scenarios when I had this aha moment that I was masking. So then I had to do additional work to get to the core of who I am. And so that then to the authentic Koya, right? So that leads into how I got to this zany. I think I'm a comedian. Probably in the next life, I'm gonna be a corny comedian because you can't tell me I'm not funny. You can't tell.
Okay, there we go.
But I realized I was like, oh, I have personality.
Yeah, you're not just
But
like
I'm like this,
runway
like
girl.
this stuck in this shell. But I was able to connect and create relationships by first creating one with myself. I
Yes.
didn't know who I was. I had no idea. I had lived and resided in this bubble, in this shell. I like to to term myself as an introvert who lives an extrovert life. Really, I'm
Yeah.
more in the middle of omnivore, right? I'm very much comfortable by myself, alone, reading a book, now sitting by water. Don't tell anybody. I still suck my thumb, but don't tell anybody. It's just us folks. It's just but that's what I did as a
Hey,
child because it was very comforting. I would literally
yeah.
lock myself in my closet or go do a tent with a cover over my head and read a book. What I decided is that when I decided, when I realized I was lonely.
Yeah.
I was lonely. Words were my friends. Books were my friend. My sister is my best friend.
Okay.
But outside of that, and my sister lives in California now. I miss her. But I realized I'm lonely and I wanted friends. I never thought I would have friends.
I
And
know.
it was through therapy I realized I needed first to connect to figure out. My therapist asked me, she said, "Who's Koya?" I couldn't answer. I had no idea. I gave a whole lot of different, I do this, I do that. I'm a daughter, blah, blah, blah. But I
Yeah.
couldn't define anything that was really definitive. So that's when I started the work and I started digging deep. And I realized I was lonely. And when I realized I was lonely and I wanted to have friends and do things, I first realized I needed to develop a friendship with myself. So I started to date myself. The scariest thing ever. What
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
scariest thing? Because again, I'm shy. Though I may go on a runway and do a magazine
That's
shoot,
crazy.
I could, but it's still different because I'm still in essence, I'm still alone because I'm doing it by myself. I'm on stage, I'm talking with people, but that's different from having a relationship, having a tribe, having a sisterhood, having guys who are friends.
Yeah.
That was different because now I have to be vulnerable with pageantry and modeling. That's work.
Yeah.
Everything else now is personal. And so I had to first identify the essence of me. And I started going out, and that was the scariest thing because now I'm putting myself into a space where I'm either going to talk with people or
Yeah.
someone's going to talk to me. Because the reality is, okay, if I go to the movies, I'm not a big movie buff, but going to a movie was kind of easy to me because I'm in the dark. So I'm not going to talk with anybody. But if I go to a restaurant or I go to a
Hmm.
museum, I'm now in a space where I'm feeling a little awkward. And not that there's anything wrong with going alone, but my purpose was to create energy for discussions. And
Yeah.
so I put myself in a very uncomfortable situation in order to grow comfortable.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while, a few years.
Okay.
And you
Good
can't
for
get me to
you.
stop talking now, right? But with that, I was able to first, I knew I needed to initiate. And not
Yeah.
that everyone would do that, but I wanted to start dialogue because I wasn't necessarily going to receive dialogue. It's the way my mind process. Like, I'm so nervous of people. If someone talks to me, I may put myself in the shell. But how about you start the conversation?
Yeah.
And now you've put yourself in this space and they may converse with you back or may not. But I did it intentionally in spaces where there'll be a commonality. So I signed. I worked at Gallaudet many years ago. And so I will go to
Okay.
ASL meetups where I may not be verbally or what we call talking with voice, but I can sign. So now I'm creating community.
Yeah.
I used to dance, so I would go to African
Nice.
dance classes. So things that excited me, or I would go to lectures where now you're having panel discussions. And so I was like, oh, we may be on to something. And darn it, I started creating connections. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, and then this zany fake comedian personality. I was like, oh, you're a little cornball too, girl. So
Where did that come from, right?
yes, it just
And
blossomed.
it
But what
felt good.
it felt amazing. It
Yeah.
feels amazing. And I'm gonna probably cry again because I never thought that I could exist in a space where someone would want to talk to me. It was like, I'm good for being abused. I'm good for if I have to do a shoot, but not for the sake of
Mm.
harmony in a friendship or a kinship. Oh my God, I was saying to one of my girlfriends the other day, I was in New York. I was like, I never thought I would have friends. I
Oh,
never thought. And so I'm like, oh, excuse the tears, everyone, but it's just such a
you
big deal to me because my life was so lonely.
I
It was
know.
just so lonely. But what translated was when I came into my workplace was I wanted to be able to connect with my team. So I used the same thing. If I was in a meeting, I would preface the meeting with maybe some type of icebreaker or something like that. But from there, I a lot of times I believe in our workplaces, we may spend more time with our coworkers than we may do with our
Yeah.
friends or relatives.
No.
And so what happened was um it was even before this thing called COVID shook the world. But I was spending so much time with my coworkers that we were able to then identify some commonalities. And we would just start to realize, oh, because at that point, now I'm comfortable speaking. And I was able to now, unfortunately, identify some who may be dealing with some type of challenges of anxiety or depression like I had. And so I would say, hey, how you feeling?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Or just go over like, may I touch you? May I give you a hug? I'm a big hugger. And so
Okay.
relationships blossom after that. And so those relationships, I'm thinking about one young lady in particular who when my mom passed away, she was just very just she's one of my good friends. But it started that way. Not that she dealt with depression,
Yeah.
um, but I was I was she was dealing with some family things and I saw sadness. And so we were able to connect, not out of trauma bonding necessarily, but hey, I've been through grief.
Hmm.
I see that you may be a little sad. Would you like to talk offline? Would you like to grab some coffee? And how are you feeling?
Okay.
Yeah, so from work,
That's huge.
it grew in that way. So yeah, and
That's
I have
awesome.
friends. Ron, that is such a big deal. Yay
That's
me.
I'm so
Yay
happy
me.
for you, Koa.
Thank you. It
So
feels nice.
yeah, and it's huge. Like there's a bunch like that can be unpacked there. It's
Yeah.
you know, the first thing that came to my mind was like, you know, when you talked about the runway and like you see the media and how they're portraying these, you know, actors is like no one really talks about, you know, having mental health issues. It's kind of
Yeah.
there, but it's usually looked at like, well, that guy's something's wrong with him.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so much going on. You know,
Yeah.
when it looks like you're being put like you're put together, it's not real. And people and it's exasperating this issue of like people feel like, well, my life's not like that. There must be something wrong with me. You
Hmm.
know, so
Yeah.
you started talking about getting, you know, putting yourself out there to get those connections,
Yeah.
you know, and I started doing that too, like not
Yeah.
too long ago, because I was like I was like, well, I need to do research for my podcast, and I was listening to this happiness lab, and like they
Mhm.
were talking about how to be more social,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try that. I was scared to death, you know,
Mhm.
like meeting new people and like intentionally, you know, going up and like, but my thing wasn't like I'm gonna go up and ask about the weather because like I hate small talk. Most
Yeah.
introverts,
Yeah.
they, you know, the thing is about it, like I've learned is like I have a battery of
Mhm.
like how social I can be.
Yeah, your social battery. Yes.
Like,
I
and
just
in the beginning, it was very, it was like one of those old iPhones. But yeah. So like the more that I did it, you know, and I like I first started asking like because one of them is like, when's the last time you cried in front of somebody? And I was like asking guys that, and I was like, oh my God, like these guys are gonna beat me up after, or they're just gonna be like, get the fuck away from me type thing, like. But you know, they actually answered the question, and I was like,
Oh wow.
you know,
Yeah.
and it started you know, like making this thing where I was like, okay, if that worked, what else can I do? You know,
Yeah.
and like I started getting into like more deeper conversations right
Mhm.
away. Um, you know, and that thing has like, you know, I actually want to coach that, you know, because
Mm.
like the way that helps me, because before that I felt like so alone,
Yeah.
like like you were talking about. And
Yeah.
like I felt trapped because like the people in my life didn't really feel like they were friends, you know,
Mm.
and like I didn't have that connection with them. And like, you know, like had thoughts of suicide because like people weren't checking up on me. People
Yeah.
weren't like, you know, sending a text like, "Hey, how are you doing?" You know,
Mhm.
not that I was like doing that myself, but it's
Mhm.
like I you know, in my head, the story that I was telling myself is like, this is your value.
Mhm.
You must be worthless because they're, you know, they don't want to talk. And they may be just not being able to do that. And I was like, I had to sit with that and explore that. And luckily, I was going through my a mindfulness technique where it
Yeah.
talked about, you know, these stories and these things your brain tells you aren't
Mhm.
necessarily facts. You can ask that. You can be like, well, is that true? Is that
Yeah.
really true? The fact that
Yeah.
I'm sitting here being mindful means that that's not true.
Mhm.
You know, and obviously wasn't that like gung ho at that moment, but it's like the more that I've been doing it and the more that I like, because I go out and I get interviews, you know, on
Mhm.
the street for my podcast about topics, and I've talked to people about suicide. I talked like last week I talked to this guy at the mall about ADHD for like 20 minutes. Like
Mhm.
who would have thought? And I've
Yeah.
had people that told me people don't want to talk about this stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like we have a deep intuition like
Yeah.
when it comes everybody, you know, when it comes to like, you know, some people more than others, but like whether somebody really wants to be in that conversation or not,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and whether they're really contributed, you know, you can kind of tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like they really want to have these conversations,
Mhm.
and it really helps me.
I love that for you. I'm saying it because I love this. I can be here all day. Um,
Thank you.
it's because it's healing. It's healing to our
Yes.
spirit that has longed for these connections. So I'm happy for you. I'm happy for me. I'm happy for all those who are dealing with the onsets of the things that we've had to deal with because it can be very lonely and it has been lonely, but it's such a an awakening when your spirit starts to feel um cared for
Yeah.
and appreciated and dare I say seen.
Yeah.
It's just and the reason that I when I go on stage or if I'm speaking rather than not modeling, I have all my, like I said, dolled up and taking stuff off because I want people to see me, not this. And the crown has been great, but we all wear crowns in some type of fashion.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want anyone to get confused with the great opportunity I have with also my journey. It's part of it, and I want people to see that I am human. We are human. The biggest difference may be our names. We all have different trials and successes
Yeah.
and joys, but to be seen um makes a big deal. And it's not that I want to. It's a people pleasing type thing, but we all human. And I've heard some people say, "Oh, they don't need anybody," and I beg to differ. We all need somebody
Oh
in
yeah.
some capacity, and so I'm happy. I'm happy you had that 20-minute conversation and everything. Yeah, I
I'm
rejoice.
happy too.
Yeah,
Koya. So yeah, it's huge. And we need to be more open about
yeah,
who we are. So like, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do is like create this like personality and that can ask for the things that you need because we all want to be happy. We all
yeah,
want to be free from pain, but most of us don't know what that looks like and
hmm,
what that how to really get that in a healthy way. you
yeah,
know and since I've become more like pro-social, like I'm willing to stand up for who I am at my job,
yeah,
when things aren't fair, when
yeah,
things aren't right,
hmm,
and being able to do the research and have the conversations and understand my worth because
yeah,
like I've become a friend of myself because like that's all that
mhm,
really matters. I love me.
yeah,
Like I may not love me as much as I would like to. I still get depressed, but that's okay. It's like
mhm.
I get to explore where's that coming from,
Yes, yes, that's key.
and like under putting a piece of the puzzle back
Hmm,
together. Like,
hmm,
okay, that's why I
hmm,
do this.
hmm.
Those mistakes that I make are only opportunities to for me to discover.
Now I celebrate your journey, right? I'm sitting here just smiling, I'm just thinking about those who will see this, but also just our own personal stories, just and not fully knowing yours, but just feeling the energy of
Yeah.
just and I wish I could hug you. It's just like, oh, I'm so happy.
Oh,
Like
me too.
I'm happy that we've been able to come to this place of celebration, identifying that yes, we still may have days that don't feel as joyful as we would desire, but we can still check in and say, "Hey, how you feeling, Ron? How you feeling, Koya? Oh, this is why. So now let's work on that because we're going to continue to elevate." That's such a victory from a time when
Yeah.
we didn't even care, and not to put words in your mouth, but I just was just wanting to just lay in my woefulness versus saying I know another side
Yeah.
exists. And I want to hear the birds singing.
Yeah, I
And I want
love
to be
it.
able to celebrate. So yeah, just the plight dealing with anxiety, ADHD, depression is big, is
Yeah,
huge.
stress is a killer.
Yes. Sure. Oh my
And
God.
people just dismiss it. Like it's like,
I don't.
oh, well, just get over it. It's like,
Yeah.
is that easy for you? What are you doing? Like,
Mm, yeah. I
please
don't.
let me know.
Yeah. I don't wish it on anyone, and I know everyone's journey is different, but yeah, it is real. It exists. The different approaches, but I'm glad, even though the conversation isn't as voluminous as I would desire it to be out in the world, I'm glad that there are platforms such as yours
Yeah,
that
me
says,
too.
hey, this exists and has impacted me, and this is my journey, and this is how I'm coming through. So it gives a voice and a face to it.
Yeah,
Because, I mean,
that's
I
why I'm
feel
your
like,
ADHD guy.
yeah, I love,
So it's
I'm
like,
here for the ride with you, Ron. Oh my goodness.
yeah, and it's like having those deep conversations like this is like what
Yeah.
makes it worth it. And I've had, so many great conversations, like just, talking about, learning and being curious about other people. And that's
Yeah.
opened the doors. But, along the way, like you had to come to a place where you had to walk through some fear,
Yeah.
and like it was great, but you made it fun. And
Yeah.
like I still, there's still people that aren't ready to have those deep conversations. Like there was a couple guys at this one mall that I went to, and they looked like they were having a deep conversation. So in my head, I'm like, I'm curious
Hmm.
to find out what they're talking about. So I was like, I rolled up on them and I was like, I see you guys are having a deep conversation. I
Hmm.
was like wondering what you guys are talking about. And the dude's like, you need to get out of here.
Oh, gee. Oh,
I thought it was
gee.
just funny though, because it
Yeah.
was like I was like, I'm not, I wasn't trying to be rude or anything. Like I
Yeah.
just accept what they're, because they weren't ready to go deep. What they
Yeah.
were talking about was like personal to them,
Right.
but
Right.
I was proud of myself for
Yes.
being able to go up and do what I wanted to do instead of being scared about like what other people would think.
That's huge. That's such a
Yeah.
milestone. Oh my
And
goodness.
that's
That.
what I want to teach. Like,
Yeah.
teach me what you're doing too. Like,
Listen,
it's that curiosity that we've had as children
let's
that
develop
is
a class, Ron. We're gonna
so
do a
locked
class.
away.
Yes, I believe some of it roots out of um an imposter syndrome,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And then the other is, oh, how dare I interrupt? How dare I interject myself into some spaces? But there's a way you can, and it's still very
Yeah.
polished and still friendly. I've done the same thing, and I'll pop in, but I'll say to someone, "Oh, that dress looks so nice on you," or "Blah blah
Yeah.
blah."
Some
Your
people really
haircut
like it
looks,
though,
yeah, like your haircut looks so. And then I'll may start a dialogue and things like that. But it's definitely a part of our healing. Um,
because I feel like in every interaction that we have, whether it goes well or it doesn't, there's a fabric. There's
mhm,
like there's a fabric of like connection.
mhm,
And I try to see that even in the rejections like are funny to me. Like I usually open up. Can I ask you guys a quick question?
mhm,
I've had guys say no, nope, like straight
mhm,
no, or
mhm.
it's not as often, but it's like it
Yeah,
does or I'm not today, and I'm like,
yeah.
well, I may not be here
Right, right, right,
tomorrow.
right, right. That's so true. Yeah,
So
we
I hate to do this, but it's like, yeah, it's the top of the hour. Where can people find your lovely self, Koya? Like to
thank
get
you.
more of you, because I know I want to.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to do a class. You're
Yeah,
stepping. You come down the
no
street. We're going to do a class
collaboration.
together. Yes. So you can find me thank you for asking, on Facebook at Koya Maisha. That's Koya is my sign name. It's Koya
Okay,
Maisha. Instagram, the same. Koya Maisha is right there. Koya Maisha. TikTok, same thing.
oh yeah,
My
TikTok.
website will be launching. I'm so excited. It's Unlimited
Wow.
with Koya. Yeah,
Good for you.
and I'll be releasing my next book. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about this journey. It has been a lifetime of work that is now encompassing and is coming to fruition. And
We're
I'm
still
definitely
going.
yeah, I'm a voyeur of myself because
So awesome.
I'm celebrating little Koya. Like you see, I'm
Yeah.
proud. I'm so proud of her. Yeah, I was looking at a picture of myself yesterday and I got my tears welled up and I was like, who we didn't think we could be here.
Yeah.
We didn't think we would be here first.
I know.
In this land of living. And then so I give thanks for it. But yes, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Unlimited with Koya. It will be up and running and live probably in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes.
Yeah, see, look, I got a picture of me when I'm
Oh, look
doing it on my
at little Ron.
phone.
I love
Yeah, that's part of like what reminds me of like who what I'm doing this for. I'm doing that for him. Like I'm being the dad for
it.
him
Yeah.
that he always
Oh,
wanted, you know.
yes. Just
So
want to hug
anything
him.
that comes up, like I'll try to be there. You know.
Yes. I love that. I celebrate you. I'm so happy um that we had this opportunity. I feel like a kindred connection with you. And so I just celebrate you, Ron. You're
Yeah,
amazing.
you
And
too.
yeah, I'm just
Your
and
story's
thank
just
you.
as amazing, if not
Thank you.
more.
Thank you for the work that you're doing, the lives that you are saving, sincerely, and for walking in your purpose with power. That makes a difference. So just thank you.
Okay, thank you. You too. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
So if this conversation moved you, like it moved me, I want you to sit with that. Let it in. You're not alone, and your story matters too. So a big thanks to Koya for sharing her soul so boldly. If this resonated, please share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And remember, kindness isn't weakness, and vulnerability is real power. Until next time, keep showing up, keep exploring, and keep being beautiful, unapologetically you. Yeah, for all my guests today, since you've been so wonderful, I'm giving away a free copy of my self-discovery journal for free. Like, of course you can go on Amazon and buy it, but I'm giving it away for free, and you can get it at youradhdguy.com. So you're definitely going to want to pick that up. And if you like it, subscribe, leave a review, and may the source be with you.